So tonight, we find ourselves not only on Shabbat, but also on the eve, or at least for people who have little ones, on the eve of February break. So our minds might be consumed with excitement for rest, for release from work and from our seemingly endless obligations, or at least we hope they are. And yet this brief oasis in time is juxtaposed with Parashat Mishpatim, whose teachings on the surface appear to impose limits on our freedom. This parsha details a litany of restrictions we are admonished to observe by presenting punishments for non-compliance with strictures Moses parts to the Israelites. Can you tell that it gets legal, all the legal jargon? And these edicts are intended to discourage us from engaging in behaviors like harming others, damaging someone else's property, stealing, and praying to gods other than Adonai. Perhaps this juxtaposition and the constraints cataloged in Parashat Mishpatim have been passed down from the birth of our Jewish journey in the desert to remind us that law and order, the preservation of rights through the recognition of responsibilities, are necessary not only for the maintenance of a functioning society or to create an Emmy Award-winning TV show that has captivated our collective imagination for 22 seasons, but also to follow true freedom and equanimity as our Pledge of Allegiance echoes in justice for all to be made possible. So let us first consider law. While the Israelites resided in Egypt, they were slaves, or so we are told. The Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, which literally means constriction. And it conveys the bondage inherent in slavery, that one is constrained by the will of somebody else. In the second verse of this week's Parashat Mishpatim, we are introduced to the word chofesh. This word means being free, very dafka, intentionally free from slavery, free from obligations toward one's owner, as in free from debt. And if you read the e-blast, you can see that Rabbi Blake spoke about that a little this week. Immediately after this liberating concept in Mishpatim, however, we read about limitations that accompany being free from slavery, limitations that animate the rules which govern a so-called free society. Some of these laws and the penalties for their breach include the prescriptions: one who harms or insults their parents shall be punished. One who kidnaps shall be punished. When someone damages the property of another, the transgressor faces negative consequences. If someone steals, they're punished. One who sacrifices to multiple gods is what? Punished. One who oppresses the stranger, the widow, or the orphan. One who spreads false rumors. Punished. Does this sound like freedom to you? Really, does it? Maybe, yes, maybe no. Freedom, when I say freedom here, I mean the freedom to do whatever we want. I imagine most are constricted by these limitations. So why does the Torah associate these laws with freedom? Perhaps because these mandates offer people a different type of freedom. Not necessarily a freedom to do as you or I please, like receiving a blank check, which we could all use, but a freedom from fear, a freedom to exist, a freedom to simply be, giving us new insight into what it means to be a human being. We might dream of what it would be like to live completely unencumbered in a world without rules, a world in which every week is February break. But how practical would that be? Because we live in a society where other people must live also with the consequences of our actions. Rules, as stifling as they may sometimes seem, can allow everyone to feel free from harm, to feel a sense of protection, sheltered not only by God's figurative wings, but also by the mutual aid and protection of God's earthly emissaries. This covenant of laws feels painfully relevant today and more necessary than ever, given the recent shooting at Michigan State University, which I can't shake out of my mind, and the thousands of previous mass shootings we endure or we hear about year after year in America. Although people are free to pick up arms in our country, this easily abused freedom can leave the majority of our fellow citizens fearing for their lives and the lives of their children. If unchecked or unregulated, this freedom to worship the shrine of self-defense can continue to limit the freedom we all enjoy to peacefully coexist. So we considered law. Let's now consider order. And I don't mean order in the sense of legal stipulations, but rather as in Seder, like a Passover Seder, order of the way we structure our time, the degree to which we clean and organize our surroundings, the manner in which we complete our tasks. Similar to the ways in which laws can feel restricting, order of time and space can feel suffocating, as if it acquires more of our time and effort. But in reality, Jewish tradition teaches that order can create for us even more free time to do as we please or as we need. And it can declutter not just our spaces, but also our hearts and our minds. Perhaps for this reason, in Parashat Mishpatim, the subject of order is addressed right after the topic of laws. Towards the end of the Parsha, God says, "Here are the 3 times in the year in which you shall all hold a festival for me. On Passover, for 7 days at the set time in the month of Aviv, on Shavuot, when you reap the first fruits of your harvest, and on Sukkot, at the end of the year." In his book, Everyday Holiness, author Alan Marinis tells a story bequeathed to us by Rabbi Aaron Kotler. Rabbi Kotler taught that practicing order in time and space replicates the deep pattern of organization in the universe, the order we see in every aspect of creation. And because all of creation runs on orderly principles, the Torah, which embodies the blueprint of the world, is orderly as well. The opening chapter of the Torah describes creation as emerging out of primordial chaos. God ordered the world with heaven and earth, light and day, land and water. Our Musar sages teach us that external order affects the inner self, helping us cultivate peace of mind. So the order you create on your desk, in your car, with your clothes in your closet, with your finances, or in your calendar is not just good time management or being organized, but also promotes our internal spiritual work. Consider Marie Kondo's method of tidying up. Raise your hand if you've used it. Okay, some of us. This method of tidying up is about clearing our homes of the items that do not serve us, that do not spark joy in our hearts, allowing us to create inner calm. So even though law and order may seem contradictory to unfettered freedom, confirming and restricting, Parashat Mishpatim teaches that in actuality, law and order can and should liberate our sense of freedom. The freedom to live in peace, to focus our time and energy on what is most important, and to become efficient in our works, both practical and spiritual.